Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. It's Drew here, and today we're in Planet Coaster as we are going to be checking out our brand new park that we're building, Rolling Springs. Oh my goodness, it has literally been ages since our last Planet Coaster video. Thankfully, I have a new computer that can actually run it decently, and I've also been streaming on Twitch on Tuesday nights, building this park piece by piece, ride by ride, and with all of your suggestions and help, which has been absolutely amazing. But I figured it's as good a time as ever, as I've recently gotten back into building in Planet Coaster, perfectly timed as well with the new announcement of Planet Coaster 2 coming out this fall, to start releasing content about it. Now, to be completely transparent, I did start building this park a good 8 months ago, if not even longer, ride by ride. And we've built around 9 coasters, I believe, in total, if not 10, as a group, which has been absolutely amazing. To those of you that have been joining the streams on Twitch on Tuesday nights, I really do appreciate you, because we've made some absolutely amazing coasters, as you can see right here. There are plenty of examples around the park right now without their proper placements yet, but we'll get to that eventually. I figured let's at least show off what we have done right now. So first, let's get some background on Rolling Springs. I don't know exactly where this park would be necessarily, but I would assume due to the terrain, some sort of alpine region. And honestly, it would make sense in my mind, especially with the style that we're going for in this park, for it to be in the Rockies somewhere, maybe in Colorado, or a specific major population center in the Rockies itself. So I'd love for you guys to let me know where it should be in the US, as specifically, it's kind of a ripoff of Kings Island and Kings Dominion, as you will see by the budget of the park overall, as well as the amount of theming and some of the other quirks that come with those parks. But the front entrance, I feel, is probably the easiest correlation between those parks in real life. If anything, I see this park as another addition to that chain of parks alongside Carowinds back in the 70s, and eventually flourishing into something into the modern day. Now, I am going to try and put together a history of each one of these rides and when they would have been built, potentially, and I'm super excited to go through all of that right now. So we have not started the front entrance quite yet. However, we have gotten some major progress in a new area of the park. And by new, I mean it popped up in the early 1990s, more specifically around 1991 or 1992. It's probably been one of the most eye-catching rides in the park already, as you can see it in brilliant red, yellow, and green color scheme. Anaconda. Yeah, did we steal the name from King's Dominion's Aero Looper? You betcha. But, man oh man, this thing is a beast with a drop of 186 feet, getting up to a top speed of 75 miles an hour. It is your classic Aero Super Looper, and I gotta say, it is easily becoming one of my favorite coasters in the park, even though it's got a little bit of that extra jankness to it that is just absolutely awesome from those 90s Aeros. We'll talk about more on that ride in just a moment. However, let's just walk down the path for what we have right now, and I'll walk you through my inspirations for a lot of these rides. So, Hovering Hawks is your classic Larson spinning ride. I can't remember the name of the model right now, but realistically, it's the same exact ride as Surfside Gliders at Knott's Berry Farm. And in my mind, this would have popped up very, very soon after Anaconda originally made up this area of the park, kind of as another way to draw folks back to that area when other bigger and badder rides would have been built in the future. And we'll talk more on that idea later. But walking through the queue, you can see just some light temple theming all the way through. Lots of planters on the side. I used, honestly, Bugs Land and California Adventure as my main inspiration for the planters on the side here with the bamboo sticking out. You can also see once I press play on the visuals, I do have advertising TVs in all of the queues that I've built thus far, kind of alluding to that fact that at least it would have been owned by Cedar Fair at some point, and now technically Six Flags. But it is in that similar budget range overall with theming, and a lot of this bamboo growth would have grown a lot in just the past couple decades that this ride has been here. So it's been kind of cool watching all of this sprout up in real time, at least for me. And of course, this ride gets crazy long lines, so I did activate the express pass system, or a quick queue, all the way around, because honestly, every time I've put guests into this park, this ride gets over an hour wait in real time, which is just insane. But I think it's due to the fact that in Planet Coaster, there's only one seat per vehicle on this, so it does make it a little harder to get more and more people on the ride, especially when the cycle ends up lasting a couple minutes. But so far, this ride has been very light on the theming. I still have some extra stuff I want to do over on the right-hand side, especially with the ride operator booth. I want to be able to mask that into the wall if I can. But I gotta say, this was the newest thing I built in this area, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Even though it looks low budget, that's kind of what I'm going for. Now, going over just to the right a bit, we go to the main attraction of this area, which we still don't have a name for, so let me know what you think the area should be called. Kind of like a South American exploration theme. And with Anaconda especially, I took a lot of cues from Indiana Jones Adventure, as well as Adventure Express in terms of the theming around the ride. And Viper was probably my biggest inspiration overall for the entire ride and the station itself. Speaking of which, this archway meant to be the Viper archway pretty much, except without the amazing sign on top. We might have to change that soon. And there is an express pass system on this ride as well, but the moment you come in, on your right, there's this cool Jeep, a little hint at what you're about to face on the ride, and literally minimal shading all around, to be completely honest with you. And I think that was a big point I was trying to get across, because a lot of these parks will not end up shading their exterior cues, which is honestly kind of a pet peeve of mine, but the bamboo growth has gotten big enough where that actually might be okay for most guests at this point. As you can see, right around 3 p.m., half of this area is under at least some decent shade. But going underneath the coaster itself, I got some inspiration from Goliath at Magic Mountain for some of the fallen temple structures, as well as this giant snake head, which I think is kind of cool. As you ride along next to the double corkscrew and the turning up into the brake run, very, very Viper-esque on that one. As we keep heading through the queue, you can see some rocks, some light foliage, some scaffolding into this temple structure, which we'll get to in just a moment. As you can see, some campsites and a broken truck with another snake just hiding right underneath. You can see I used an archer for scale just to get a better idea of how regular guests will look near everything, and more TVs dot the queue, with some old growth trees actually providing most of the shade here. Because if you think about it, this ride has been here for over 30 years, at least in the meta of this history. And during that time, they had some giant trees sprout up and were able to give shade in places that probably wouldn't have had any shade whatsoever when the ride originally opened. Now, heading up into the main station itself, you can see you're kind of part of this dig site, uncovering more of this temple. And you can see the station is pretty plain. Some floodlights make sure everything is light enough for the ride operators to check all of the restraints properly. And I will admit, there is that quick queue system that I showed off a little bit earlier. Let's go ahead and take a look inside the tunnel. Definitely got some inspiration from the Kong Skull Island Express queue in Universal Studios Orlando, and more specifically Islands of Adventure, because if you've ever been in that express queue, it's literally just blank walls. And while this is technically a little bit more than that, as there's even a mummy-esque peekaboo hole right there, it is very, very bland all around, to be honest, while you're going underneath the station. Except when you come out, you do get some cool statue moments before meeting up with the rest of the queue. Leaving the station, you will eventually get down to where you will be able to purchase a photograph of yourself on the ride. And I felt like that was kind of a necessity with a ride like this, especially looking at things like Viper. While that photo booth might not be open all the time, that is still there. And I did get a little inspiration from Cheetah Hunt. As you can see, there is a support in, in the, quote, gift shop, unquote. As we walk out, we'll actually be greeted on the right-hand side with a little backstage access point. And then on the left, being right underneath the transfer track, this is just something I wanted to leave a little barren, as a lot of parks around this era just left areas pretty plain and without any theming whatsoever within guest view. So I kind of wanted to allude to that a little bit, and the fact that this probably would have been a smoking area back in the day, even though most of those have gone the wayside as of recent years in most parks. This definitely would have been a smoking area when the ride first opened. That is for sure. But yeah, that's Anaconda. It's looking amazing. We will catch a ride on it in just a bit, but next up, we got to check out the third and final ride of this area, Arachnid, which has some more interesting and intricate theming for a smaller ride. As again, looking to recent Cedar Fair, even the smaller rides have gotten that little extra bit of theming, and of course this is themed to lovely spiders, and it is realistically a way to get more and more people back to this side of the park after Anaconda has been around for decades. This is a claw ride, just like La Revolucion at Knott's Berry Farm, swings back and forth while it spins. And the cool thing about this being a newer addition to the park overall, realistically probably early 2010s, I would assume, it juts out into the water, giving this cool effect of flying over it as well as on the other side over pathways. And that's actually why I have a bunch of the netting set up over here, because I'm still trying to figure out how to integrate that properly. But going into the queue, it's quite a short one. You can see more of those advertising TVs, some ruins, and of course, tons of spiders, cobwebs, and even some human bones scattered throughout the cobwebs to just give that feeling of dread as you head into the rides area itself. It has this cool color scheme of what my buddy Jinx Everywhere said was puke green, brown, and purple. That was his suggestions, and I gotta say, it's actually kind of interesting. It definitely blends in with the area while giving it its own identity with that purple popping out. But talking of color, let's go ahead and look at this area at night real quick before we head into the ride POVs. So I added some minimal lighting along all of these planters, again referencing Bugs Land at DCA, because this is something I always remember as a kid, seeing like just the little disguised lights in the planters shining down onto the pathways, making everything easier to see at night. And it was one of my favorite areas of any park at night, actually, because of that, because it was so subtle, but it worked so well. Obviously, not too much lighting here, as I may change that in the future, just to make sure people aren't tripping over the fence gates or anything like that. But I am kind of proud that I did add the temporary stanchion right here, just, you know, in case, if ever, this is not really going to happen in the game, but if the line was short enough. But super simplistic lighting around hovering hawks, outside of course, some of the string lights that you see on the ride and around the sign itself. Before we head over to Anaconda again, where we've got some torch lights to add to the theming, as well as some of those same walkway lights there. And a lot of the queues on the right-hand side with Anaconda and Arachnid have some more interesting spotlight moments, which honestly, in my mind, makes sense for like a 1930s or 40s dig site. They would have just these big lights that shine onto anything they were working on. And if anything, while cheap for the park, it also looks like it fits as well. So I used that to light up a lot of Anaconda's line, outside of course, the truck lights here, and even some floodlights that are coming from the backstage area, which I've not quite started on yet, but this is all going to be some realistic backstage in this section here, so that's going to be kind of cool. But yeah, some uplights going up to the station, and of course those floodlights making sure that the team members can properly check the restraints of this aero coaster. And then with Arachnid, we added some extra lamp lighting, which I think just gives that little extra budget push that it would have gotten in the late 2010s, early 2010s, somewhere around there. But just that extra little bit that really makes the theming kind of pop, especially at night for Arachnid. And I gotta say, I do like the fact that I added these red lights to really just make this ride pop against the rest of the skyline behind it, as you can see it twirling around. But it's really, really nice looking. I'm actually very excited with how this area has turned out thus far. So without further ado, though, let's go ahead and ride Anaconda, as you'll even get a little bit of a surprise towards the end. It's going to be a lot of fun, so let's hop on and experience this awesome aero looper built in the early 90s. So that was just a quick POV of Anaconda. As you can tell, I have to turn off the audio for all of those TVs for sure. They're all way too loud, which I guess is technically realistic, but man, hearing Tiki Chiki over and over again is going to be real annoying. But I'm sure you could see that there were plenty of moments that definitely need to be smoothed out even further than they already have, especially that first drop. It's pretty brutal. But you can see elements of Phantom's Revenge, Viper, and maybe even a little bit of Great American Scream Machine, which is technically the train model that is being used here, which I think is kind of funny, the American Arrow. If you think we should change this to new Vekoma trains down the line, I would be very much interested in that, because again, like most of these 90s arrows at this point, I feel like it's not the worst idea to start replacing those trains with Vekoma trains, as we've seen with many different models at this point. But I'm curious what you guys think on all of this thus far, because this is really going to be a park made from your feedback and suggestions. Yes, I'm at the helm of this ship, but I'm really looking to listen to what you guys have to say when it comes to all of Rolling Springs. Before we end this episode, though, no time lapse in this one, as I'm just introducing the park to everyone and what we've done thus far on stream as well as off of stream. We have an amazing mock launch coaster, 3 launches on this bad boy, called Riptide Rush. Honestly, one of my favorite rides in the park thus far. It's going to have kind of like a hang time or pipeline-like theming, so very surf-oriented, which is going to be kind of cool. And I'm going to have to be able to mash that with the South American theming over here, as they are pretty much right next to each other, as there's actually going to be a waterway coming into this area and being under most of this coaster. As this park is called Rolling Springs, I've kind of gotten into the idea of making it kind of a Disney Sea inspired theme, where almost everything has water incorporated with it in some way or another. Now, I don't know if we'll be able to do that with all of our rides, especially our B&M dive coaster called Vampire, which is pretty insane if you ask me. This thing is massive and definitely is going to be a star attraction at the park once it's all themed up with a spooky castle out front and probably a minimal station, kind of like Poltergeist at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, although that did get the major upgrade a couple of years ago, so maybe we can follow suit. In addition to that, this was our first coaster over here. It's called Xanadu. We have some Rush fans in the Twitch audience that have decided to name multiple coasters after the band and their music. But yeah, Xanadu, GCI wooden coaster, kind of Gold Striker and Mystic Timbers-esque. Gotta say, this was a pretty great first ride. Not sure where to put this one yet. Same when it comes to Barnstormer, this Great Bear, Silver Bullet, and Montu monstrosity of a B&M invert. I'm thinking about doing a western area, so this might fit there, but this is a pretty insane coaster. Might have to change certain parts of it, sadly, just due to how close it gets to the side of the station. I tried building an exit from here, but it was just a little too close, so I might have to do some stuff there. There's also a little bit of Banshee in there as well, which is kind of nice, but yeah, we'll have to get a POV of this later on. Force 10, another Rush inspired coaster, kind of like Maverick, to be completely honest with you. It's like a new age Maverick with little bits of Gatekeeper in here with this like wing over drop on a Blitz coaster, which is kind of interesting. New era horseshoe roll right here with the double 0G rolls. This one's pretty quirky overall, but I'm pretty excited about it. I might have to change a couple things here and there, but that's going to have to be the same way with all of the coasters we've built thus far. And then we come over to our kiddie area coasters. This is Roly Poly, pretty much meant to be Canyon Blaster. However, due to the friction physics in this game, I could not add the 4 crazy airtime hills at the end. Sadly, it barely even makes it into the brake run. And right next door is Phyllis, the Flying Dragon. This is kind of your family-esque coaster, a Vekoma Junior coaster that's not so junior, inspired by the dragon at Legoland, as well as even Jaguar at Knott's with how long the train is and some of the moves that it makes throughout the course. But our kid area is definitely going to be themed to medieval and mythical times. It's going to be really cool to see all of that come together. Before we head over to the last major coaster that you guys designed, and this is called Vesuvius, taking inspiration from Mystery Mine as well as Wicked at Lagoon. This thing is insane, probably the best looking coaster at the park. I do want to fix the ending over here inspired by Mystery Mine when I can, but this thing's going to be mainly indoors and themed to Mount Vesuvius erupting. It's going to be pretty insane, and I can't wait to theme this all up and get this thing in a big box. It's going to be amazing once it's all done. But yeah, I'm very excited for everything coming to this park, and we will have some more episodes on this weekly, as well as streams on Tuesdays if I'm able to, on our Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/parksbros if you're interested, around 7 or 8 p.m. Pacific time. But with that said, I hope you're excited to see more of Rolling Springs in the future, because I definitely am. I want to get this park finished before Planet Coaster 2, and actually I'll go over my entire thoughts on Planet Coaster 2 in the next episode of Rolling Springs, so I hope you're all super ecstatic like I am for this thing. I'm really feeling inspired. Next episode, we're going to be making the gift shop and restroom area, as well as just all the miscellaneous restaurants and everything that will be in between Riptide Rush and Anaconda, and kind of make it like an Adventureland / Frontierland split using the same building with 2 different themes. It's going to be really interesting, but we're going to time-lapse that next episode, so I hope you're excited. And if you are, make sure to subscribe if you haven't. But of course, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you on the next ride.